Okay, I think we're live again. All right.
Hey,
It looks like it. We seem to be recording. I can hear you. All right, everyone. I'm the Sagan.
I'm the Tesla.
We are Side to Say, and welcome to episode 2 of Project 6, our podcast experiment, as it were. And today's subject, just to get right into it, because we're going to try to keep this episode a little bit shorter. Can't guarantee we won't go on a tangent like we almost always do. But yeah, today's subject, because we're in Shocktober, is going to be top 5 horror movies. Those who know me, I'm a big horror movie fan. Tesla, perhaps not as much, but has appreciation for it.
Nowhere near as much.
Yeah. I This is one I definitely wish we could have gotten the Darwin for, but he is still currently out of the country. Um, but uh, but yeah, we thought we might as well do something appropriate for the theme of the month. So let's talk about horror films. So we have each made a list of our top 5, and at least for me personally, this is favorites, not necessarily scariest, although one of them definitely is, or two of them even. A couple are more just because they're my favorites for one reason or another, and we'll go into that when we discuss them. We have not compared notes, so we may name the same film in a couple points like we did last time, but we'll just have to
I
find
think
out.
it's gonna be pretty likely. There might be one that I would consider that I wouldn't be surprised if you had as well, but
Hmm.
outside of that, yeah, I definitely don't think that's gonna be as much of a case.
And I will note beforehand, at least in the case of my list, these are not in any particular order.
Yeah, same.
Uh, shall I start or shall you?
You can go ahead and start.
All right. Number 1, The Ring. Uh, those that have watched some of our other videos might have seen that one coming. But yeah, that's this. Hit or miss for some people. Some people don't find it scary. Some people do. For me, it has a lot to do with the time that I watched it. It's still creepy on certain levels. I watched it not too long ago. Still holds up. The moment of and major spoiler alert. But we are talking about a movie that is 22 years old at this point.
For sure,
Uh,
for sure. It's like, yeah, we'll give you a spoiler alert, but
yeah, I mean,
honestly,
I think we should just say off the bat, probably spoiler alert for all of these. So if we start talking about a movie you haven't seen, I would advise, skip ahead because we advise you to see it first. But yeah, the moment where Samara, the little girl, crawls out of the television is still like, it,
okay,
it,
if that's a spoiler, then you need to actually live your freaking life. Like, holy crap, how can you not have seen that?
I mean, well, it is like it's the
The most
apex.
iconic, one of
It's
the
a
most iconic horror movie scenes ever.
true, and I mean,
It's like not knowing about bullet time in the Matrix. Like,
true.
how? Then again, some people can go through the 90s and not know who Blink 182 are.
If you don't know who Blink 182 is, stop
But you
listening.
know who freaking Matthew Perry and Johnny Knoxville are.
I'm just
You know
saying.
what? We want to study you.
I'm just saying. Stop listening to two assholes talk about horror movies right now, and like fucking go listen to Enema of the State already. Like educate yourself on Blink 182. I mean, really? Have you run into
I
somebody?
didn't think of that. That
Oh,
still
that's
blows me.
no, right.
And
Yeah, sorry.
Johnny
I
Knoxville and Matthew Perry were.
right. Sorry. I've just remembered what the Tesla is referencing here, and see here we're getting off topic, but it's fine. Uh,
Just no, yeah, yeah. Just because it's unbelievable.
yeah, no, this is like so. Mark Hoppus of Blink 182 recently posted a video to social media saying that how he was out and about and had some young people come up to him, and he's thinking, oh, they've recognized me, that kind of thing, and they ask him, "Are you Johnny Knoxville?" And he goes, "Oh no, sorry, that's not me."
Which he does kind of look like him
Which,
now.
yeah, to be fair, like the way he does his hair now, and wearing the horn rimmed glasses, which Knoxville does, definitely see some slight resemblance there. So that was understandable. So they wander off. Then they come back to him later and they go, "Are you Matthew Perry?" And I'm just like, "What?" Like he doesn't even look like Matthew Perry. And he's like, "No, that's not me either." He goes, I play bass in a band called Blink 182." And they're like, "Oh, yeah, no, we never heard of that." I'm like, "What?"
Wow.
Yeah, yeah,
So hopefully they have some good music to discover.
yeah. Seriously, I hope those kids decided to look up Blink 182 and actually listen to some of their stuff and enjoy it. Um,
But so yeah, no, if you don't know about the scene from The Ring, then I don't know how to help you.
yeah, I mean, to be fair, most people should know about it these days, but maybe you've been living under a rock. I know a few people that do that. Not live under a rock, but live under a rock pop culture wise. Um, I mean, and at the time it came out, there was kind of a viral campaign going on. People were leaving, blank videotapes when videotapes were much more ubiquitous, out in public to see if they'd be found. Uh, the 7 days was very much a thing, and without the ring, that wouldn't have led to sort of uh, the Japanese remake craze of the early 2000s, where The Grudge, which is another movie we could go on about for a bit, uh, you know, um, Shudder, uh, several others. I found out recently The Eye is actually the movie that killed that entire craze. The remake of The Eye, which is unfortunate because the original version is actually really good. Apparently, everybody just hated the one with Jessica Alba though. But
Yeah, so
yeah, but The Ring, it was definitely it's one I still enjoy. The sequel is not bad. Definitely not as good as the first one though. There's just something about it that hits so well. And I've seen both Ring You and The Ring, and they're both fantastic. But they each have their own charm to it because they're slightly different. It's not just a shot for shot remake.
I will also apologize. Um dealing with the seasonal changes around here. I like last week I was a little bit hoarse. And this week, all that lovely gunk that was in my throat last week is now in my chest. So that's why I'm coughing periodically.
Gotta hork that shit up.
Well, the other thing about the ring too is it was partially filmed in Oregon.
Yes. Was
A lot
it?
of it was in Washington, but
Yeah.
there was a couple areas in Oregon. I know it was like parts of it was over at the coast. I think
I think the
the White
farm.
House movie is the one near Newport.
Yeah, I think the farm scenes were done here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then the gorge as well, which tends those two are tend to be pretty good locations for
hmm
random filming. So
And I mean, God, you just remind me of like another, like the whole scene where Brian Cox, who played Samara's father, is wandering around the farmhouse, like, well, Rachel's looking around for clues and that kind of thing, is so well done. In fact, it's one of the few times I've seen CinemaSins go, "Holy shit, that's how you do a jump scare," and actually took sins off for it. Because like there was no musical sting. It was just one moment she's looking at something and the light changes and he's there, and it was like, whoa, you know. But yeah, it's just a great movie to me.
yeah, no, I don't have anything really to add to it. I have seen that one. It's been a long time. I watched it, God, probably right after it came out on video. Um, but no, I actually remember liking it. Um, that said, I guess that I will go ahead and throw
Oh,
mine in, which is
before hold on, before you do, I just one more thing I was gonna add. Another thing that for those for those early, the movie came out right when we were making the transition from VHS to DVD, and one of the cool things they did on the DVD is when you finish the movie, the tape would play, but you could not skip it. Like the only way you could have turned it off was to actually turn off the power to your DVD player. You couldn't go back to the menu, you couldn't stop it, you couldn't pause it, couldn't fast forward, couldn't rewind it. You were basically forced to watch the entire videotape, and then it would take you back to the DVD menu. All right, so
I don't remember that, but
yeah, it's a basically an Easter egg on the DVD. So you had to like sit through the credits too, you know.
um, yeah. Since we started with the Ring, I'll go ahead and do the Grudge, which I think that might be the only one.
So the Grudge didn't go on my list because I thought it might end up in yours. So and
Yeah,
if it had ended up on my list, I would have
movie.
actually done like the Ring slash the Grudge because I kind of hold them at a very similar level. Although I would give it the edge to the Ring just a little bit.
Yeah, the Grudge, which is the American release or remake of Ju-On. Uh, Absolutely fantastic. Like genuinely one of the scariest movies I've ever seen.
Agreed.
Completely like you know the there's so much ambience in that movie, and I like the aesthetics as well. Like the fact that a lot of it takes place in a abandoned Japanese house is just like one of the most perfect because I've seen a lot of um abandoned actually not that long ago I found out that actually a few years back um Google Street View car went through several towns around the uh Fukushima plant, and those are
Uh
all abandoned towns now, like nobody lives there, and you can like they're just ghost towns pretty much now. Like I know that some of them still have like a little bit of a population, but like huge chunks of these towns are abandoned, and I just couldn't help but go, oh my god, like you get that same vibe that you got from the exterior scenes from The Grudge, except for it's not as gray and dark. It was a perfectly beautiful summer day, but you still get that kind of creepy, like, oh man, life paused on 2011 here, and it never resumed.
hmm
Um, and I like as heart kind of wrenching, breaking as it was, because a lot of that area you could tell like dealt like had earthquake damage, but not tsunami damage. Um, it was just kind of surreal. I just want to touch on that. That like I I don't know if I could recommend it, but if you're curious to see what some of those towns around the nuclear plant looks like, yeah, you can do Google Street Views through there. Um, so like I really always like that aesthetic, and it can be very well done. It's kind of like in Western genre, in Western horror, it's like, oh okay, the creepy old house, blah 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 blah. But there's something even more unsettling about when when it's a Japanese house. For some weird reason, it's just a
hmm
little bit more unsettling when it's falling apart and whatnot. Partially because I think a lot of those buildings are actually just straight up old a
hmm
lot of the time. So it's like, okay, they're already like 300 years old. So it's like, yeah, it just adds to it. Um, who was it? Was it Sarah Michelle Gellar was in that one?
Yes, in the first one, yeah. She's also in the second
Yeah.
one briefly.
We don't talk
well,
about.
we'll
We
get
won't.
we will have to briefly touch on the second one, but only after we're done discussing those. And
But yeah,
we won't go to a full discussion on that one.
but yeah, no, the first one was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah,
Brilliantly directed, eerie. It had good jump scares. While
while being genuinely scary. Like,
yeah, like no matter like you were never not on the edge of your seat in
hmm
that movie, and I think that's the reason why it ranks as probably this damn near the scariest movie I've ever seen. Um, because there's just no like moment to really relax, and it's not because you're like sitting there go, oh, there's gonna be a jump scare at any moment. They're very tasteful. and
Yeah.
how they sprinkle the jump scares throughout that movie, and I think that does a fantastic job. It's just it plays on the psychological horror aspect as well as the supernatural horror,
Yeah.
and like us, you know,
Definitely. Definitely
slasher,
agree.
almost slasher level because
Hmm.
of the plot of the movie. So it's like it takes all three like of those prominent genres and manages to squeeze it together. It was the first one that one of the first ones that we really saw like that here in the U.S.
Hmm.
So um, yeah, and seeing it in theaters, it was one of the scariest ones. I was uneasy throughout the whole movie, and I did get freaked out by it, but it wasn't until 3 days later, and I was taking a shower, and
You felt the
I
back of
wasn't
your
even
head.
thinking about the movie, and suddenly my brain, because I if it's daytime, I don't, and the bathroom's well lit, I don't bother turning the light on because it's like, ah, whatever. It's bright enough. But
Sure.
that can create shadows even
Yeah.
in the middle of the day. And my brain saw a bit of a shadow out of the corner of my eye, and I immediately had to step out of the shower. Like I couldn't
Just
finish. I was like, no, I'm
nope.
done. I'm done.
Yeah.
Like I still had soap. I just put soap in my hair, and I'm like,
Oh
no, I'm gonna towel it off, which is not as effective as you think.
no, I would
Um,
imagine it's not.
and I know other people that were like affected. I think the Darwin had an issue like the
Oh
next day. Like
yeah.
he got freaked out by something. Didn't you get? Didn't you have
So
like a mind trick as well
I
within the first?
ne- I never saw it with. I didn't see the first one with you. I wasn't there for that.
Okay,
I
I was
wish
thinking
I was given the results that I don't know if you want to touch on here, but when I
let's just
did,
say one member of our party was so freaked out by it that the theater genuinely wanted to call an ambulance.
yeah, and another member of your party decided to call that person on their cell phone who was in another car and go, uh...
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, no, I did see it in theaters. You talk about being uncomfortable in the theaters. There are very few movies that have given me a genuine like. Okay, I won't say The Grudge made me uncomfortable. There's other movies that have done that, and in fact, one of them's on this list, and we'll discuss that. But I that feeling of being on the edge of your seat the entire time, 100% had that through that movie. And yeah, definitely enjoyed it. It would absolutely be on my list if I wasn't almost certain it was on yours. Um, and yeah, there's like I said, the aftermath was something we've discussed and had many laughs at. That same person that they were afraid might need an ambulance, that person received a copy of The Grudge as a Christmas gift later that year, and then I had to be told what happened. So yeah, but I put The Ring and The Grudge very close together. Again, without those movies, the early 2000s, Japanese remake craze wouldn't have happened. And I remember even from seeing the advertisements, like The Grudge just gave this, feeling of unease because like if you've ever seen the ads for like Juwan, it's just the kid on like a red background, and it you're just like, what is that? It's weird looking. So um, yeah, definitely agree with that one being on the list because it's up there.
and yeah, just to touch on the Grudge 2, which we saw in the theater.
Now that one we did see together.
Let's just say, um, I've never been in a theater that broke out in laughter so hard my entire life,
Yeah,
even in comedies.
yeah. So
Except for okay, except for maybe Jackass
well,
3.
no,
Maybe
okay, yeah, no.
we had a lot
Jackass 3. I guarantee you had more laughter than when we saw The Grudge 2. And had we been able to
but no, the
see
boisterous, like the boisterousness of that laughter.
True, yeah.
And
Well, because
theater,
it was it was this moment that just came across as absurd, and it was breaking that tension that a lot of us I think had been feeling up to that point. Like, because I had some of that same feeling of being on the edge of my seat, at least in the
I
early
didn't.
part.
I don't know why, but the second one
Just didn't do it for you.
did not land. Like I was just like, oh, this is gonna be a wreck,
Yeah,
especially with how ham-fisted the beginning is
I
with
would.
Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Oh, yeah, because of her sudden and unexpected demise.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
Spoiler alert, she dies in the first like 30 seconds, and it's hilarious too.
Yeah, because it just kind of, I mean, it comes absolutely out of nowhere.
Yeah.
But I kind of enjoy that sometimes when a movie has the balls to kill off its protagonist from the first movie,
Oh yeah,
especially.
no, I don't mind it.
I mean, I there are times I do because I really like the character. Other times it's like I'd like to have seen them live, but that's cool they killed them off because like that tells you like nobody is safe.
Yeah.
Think about and spoiler alert, Final Destination 2, you find out later that Alex from Final Destination 1 died between movies, and he was the one that was working so hard to survive death the entire time. And I should mention that if I hadn't put a few other things on this list, Final Destination, at least the first one, probably would be on that list because of the impact it's had on my life. I'll just go to the point of saying I'm still slightly freaked out to get on a plane because of that movie. Once I'm up in the air, I'm totally fine, but it's taken off that always makes me a little bit uneasy because of that movie. But
We
yeah.
there's a lot of logging trucks in our area.
Oh,
Let's just say
also that, but that falls under Final Destination too. And yeah, anytime I'm behind a logging truck, it's like, can we just get in the next lane? Would that be cool?
yeah. But um yeah, so no, the Grudge 2, yeah, there
Yeah,
was one scene
there.
where as soon as it happened,
I mean,
and granted, I think it's decently executed
the
from a
scene.
director
Yeah,
perspective. Well, you know what I mean, cinematographer
yeah,
perspective. I think they did the cinematographer did a decent job, but only so much there's
yeah.
only so much makeup you can put
There,
on a pig.
yeah, yeah. Like the scene, the build up to the scene is good, and then the thing happens, and it literally you just felt the tension break in the in the theater, and everybody busted up laughing.
It was
And
loud enough that other theaters heard it.
yes, um,
Because the freaking I know that when we left, one of the theater ushers was like, "What the hell happened in there? I thought it
right,
was a horror movie."
yeah,
Like, so did we.
yeah,
Because
uh,
after that point, it was like nobody in that theater like took it
right,
real
yeah.
too
It's
real
like I said,
seriously.
it literally I was feeling some of that tension myself up until that point, and then it broke, and everybody just like was laughing. It's like, okay, now I'm just enjoying this for whatever train wreck it is, and it's not
It
as
ended up being an enjoyable train
yeah.
wreck.
I mean,
I don't know if I want to watch it again, but I remember enjoying the movie more after that scene.
I would absolutely watch it again, but I think we get so much out of almost the meme of that moment. And for those that have seen the movie, the moment we're talking about is when the girl is confronted by her principal, and it turns out that not only are her two friends that she went to the house with and are now dead are sitting in the room with her, but her principal
And
has also
they've been
been
corrupted by
they've
the
been corrupted
grudge.
by the grudge. The principal has also been corrupted by the grudge, but it pans over to her, like supposedly making the rasping noise, but the choice the actress went with, and more confusingly, the
The
director,
noise is like you don't have to hit it 100%, but it's not hard to do.
no, but instead of being like, something mildly creepy, she was literally going, like we've talked about this in previous videos, and I've actually cut the entire scene in because I had to illustrate how bad this was.
It was like a foghorn.
Yes, yes, it was like a foghorn.
But so which one's next on your list?
Next up for me, and this won't be a surprise to a lot of people, think 13 Ghosts, and I refer specifically to the 2001 remake done by Dark Castle Entertainment. Um, it's a top favorite of mine for multiple reasons. One is uh, it's I genuinely enjoy the film and love the whole story and concept of it. It was also the first R-rated movie I was able to see by myself, um, and I have loved everything Dark Castle Entertainment has done. I saw Ghost Ship the next year, followed by Gothica, followed by House of Wax. I own all those movies. I have the movie posters for them all. In fact, when I moved into this house, I had to replace the movie posters for the first three of those, and I now have like actual theatrical posters dated for Halloween, which is the original release date, framed and hung up together as a nice set, and it looks awesome. But yeah, no, I really just enjoy that movie. It's not. I mean, I fully understand the people that don't like it. You know, they might find it kind of cheesy or whatever. It's not a particularly scary movie to it. It's just a very enjoyable horror movie to me. The concept, for those that aren't familiar, um, guy inherits a house from an uncle he didn't know he had, basically, and they get there, and the house is all made of glass, and it turns out that in the basement to this house are 12 ghosts that have been captured by the dead uncle that are meant for a far more sinister purpose, and each ghost fits a certain archetype that the uncle needed for a particular purpose. This is explained in the movie. I'm not going to spoil the entire plot here, but it everything from the concept of the story to the acting. You know, Tony Shalhoub's in it, Shannon Elizabeth is in it, and the makeup and the set designs, everything. I just love everything about this movie. I recommend everybody watch it at least once. And that kicked off, like I said, a whole production of movies that I ultimately really enjoyed in the early 2000s.
Yeah, I never saw the newer one. I saw the original back in the 90s. It was on TV and my mom was watching it. And I watched it was late night, so I don't like remember much about
Mhm.
it. Um, but I remember watching like I don't know, maybe half an hour of it, and it was like, oh, this is pretty good. But black and white movie, so I
Sure.
wasn't interested as I probably should have been.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing about the original movie is that there was a gimmick involved with the original movie that when you saw it in the theater, you had to put on a special pair of glasses in order to actually see the ghosts. I'm not
Oh, that's
exact.
cool.
I'm not exactly sure how they accomplished that. I should have actually looked that up, considering that I love the remake so much. And so they actually carried that idea into the remake in that you don't need glasses to see the ghosts, but the characters do. So there are a set of glasses that each character gets throughout the movie that when they put them on, they're able to see the ghosts, but if they're not wearing them, they can't see them.
Um,
You there?
yeah, no, I don't have anything to add
No,
other than
that's.
that.
I mean, yeah, it's fair. If you haven't seen it, you can't talk much about it. But didn't you? I guess you weren't there for when we did it as a movie night a while back.
No, I don't remember.
It would have
Like I
been
said,
la-
I
it would have
never
been
seen.
last year, so I mean, no big deal. But yeah, it's definitely a favorite of mine. And one really cool thing that they did for it too is that because in 90 minutes for a typical horror movie, you can only put so much information in. They did a whole bonus on the DVD covering the origin of each of the ghosts, like how they died and why they fit the particular archetype that was needed. And they really put some. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention fucking F Murray. Yeah, effing F Murray Abraham is in the movie as the dead uncle, and he's actually the narrator for all the features on the DVD of like the history of the ghosts and why he felt this particular person's tragic demise fit the need he needed for the particular ghost. So yeah, it's one that a lot of thought and effort was put into, and I know it did well at the time, but it's one of those I feel like a lot of people these days don't know about it. just because it is a bit of a product of its time at the same time, you know.
Yeah, I remember it coming out, but that's about the newer version, but that's about it.
Hmm.
So, um, uh, next on my list, and the side note is I don't really watch a lot of movies anymore. And B, it's like horror movies. I've always liked the aesthetics, and I've seen an okay amount. I used to watch them a lot more when I was a kid. I don't know why. Um, so that's one reason why I don't have a lot to add to this, is because it's like I like the aesthetics. I like, the genre. It's just I never go, bother to watch movies
Sure.
anymore. So,
Yeah. I mean, to be
um,
fair, as much as I'm like known as the movie guy among some of our friends, like even I haven't been able to watch that many movies in recent years, unless I have somebody to watch with, because it just feels like such a time investment to sit down and watch a movie, unless I'm gonna actually be enjoying it with somebody, you know?
um, one of one of the movies on my list, probably shouldn't won't shock you. When I was writing this list up, it's like, wow, I kind of grabbed one movie from a different subgenre or
Hmm.
style, uh, from horror. Uh, and I almost did another one with this, but kind of comedy horror. And it was Shaun of the Dead, which is still one hands down my
Definitely,
zombie
definitely,
and comedy horror, and it's
yeah,
hands down one of my all-time favorite. I won't say all-time favorite movies, but I kind of want to put it on that list. I just don't know where it would rank. Is it top 25? Is it top 20? Um, but I love that. I absolutely love that movie, and I can't. Ironically, I don't really like zombie apocalypse movies. I just can't stand them.
hmm,
I can kind of enjoy watching like Dawn of the Dead, um, Day of the Dead, stuff like that. Like every so often, it's like, yeah, that's not too bad. But for me, a lot of like apocalypse movies just hit kind of that uncanny valley. It's like this
hmm,
is too real, and I don't want to think about the apocalypse. It's like yeah, we're already close enough to midnight. I don't want to think about what happens at that point.
sure, yeah,
Um, which ironically, that's why I really liked Shaun of the Dead, because I felt like it was so realistic
hmm.
in how it would be taken care of. Because what it
It's
is
just,
it a movie of just a survival zombie horror apocalypse, but it's a comedy, and the zombie apocalypse starts kind of happening kind of in the background, like you're really just
yeah,
paying attention to life and everything, and slowly the information that, oh, shit's getting real, is building in,
hmm.
but he's still kind of oblivious to it until literally like the third or fourth day.
Yeah, it's the way
Oh,
that's
I guess.
done in the movie is so well done that it's just little blips here and there, like him flipping through the channels, and I'll see something, and you're just like, oh, whatever, he moves on.
But yeah, the just the overall, like, the atmosphere is so well done. Like I said, it's a comedy. Um, there's really good action in it. You do kind of start feeling like connection to the characters too, which is kind of tough to do when you have kind of an ensemble cast like that, especially even like ones that are unlikable. Like the one dude that kind of is always on edge and whatnot. I feel bad for him, even though he's a jackass.
Hmm.
Even when he dies, it's like, oh, and the way he dies is brutally gory.
Yeah.
But um, I think the thing that really sealed the deal for the movie for me was just the very end, and how, because normally what it is in a lot of those zombie movies that I don't care for is they basically go, oh well, the military's, all of the world's militaries aren't strong enough to stop this. They're not isolating it. They're not doing
Hmm.
this and this and this. And in that movie, it's like, oh no, they kind of isolated it to just basically England,
Yeah.
and
Like
not even all of England
right. It's
either.
basically almost just their town or village, and like that's it. Like
Yeah,
yeah,
and the
a little bit more
military
of the
just
wider area, but military basically puts the kibosh on it in like 24 hours.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
at the end of the movie, yeah, like Sean and his girl, basically his girlfriend, are about ready to go out fighting, and then just suddenly you just see military trucks come up and just mow down the zombies,
Hmm.
and then they start just unloading all the bullets into the zombies. I'm like, yeah, that feels a little bit more
More
realistic.
realistic. Yeah. Well,
And
and
then
he,
they have uh what is it, the final scene, but I can't remember what it's called,
oh,
like
the
not
epilogue essentially.
prelude.
No, epilogue. You mean
Epilogue, thank you. Yeah,
prelude
prelude.
would be first. Yeah.
Yeah, the epilogue, and like they managed to actually like sort of domesticate the zombies,
Yeah. Yeah. Like
which is really funny.
they found like ways to utilize the zombies that are still there, like like they've got them working as people pushing carts in the parking lot of a supermarket, or uh
Use them for game shows.
right, yeah, using it for game shows just as entertainment. Yeah.
And yeah, no, it's yeah, like I said, it's really well done. I always really liked that movie. Again, comedy was top notch. It's from the same guys that did Hot Fuzz.
Yeah.
Um, and what is it? The End of the World.
Yes.
So
The
the
Three
only thing
Flavors Cornetto
people
trilogy is that is known.
Cornetto.
The because a cornetto appears in each film
Yeah, which
of a
is
different flavor.
a tri flavored ice cream, I think. The
No,
looking one.
it's actually they're all different flavors, but the reason why it's called Three Flavors Cornetto is a different flavor appears in each film.
Okay.
Strawberry
And
appears.
if I recall, the wrapping defines kind of like the colors of the movie too.
Right. So the one in Shaun of the Dead is strawberry, which is red, which represents the blood of the zombies. The one in Hot Fuzz is vanilla, which is blue, which represents the police force. And the one for the end of the world, only the wrapper shows up, and it's green for mint, which is representing the aliens in that one.
But yeah, no, it's just like if you've seen those movies, you definitely understand. I can't stress enough. Like that's
No,
one that
it's
I would recommend to almost anybody to see. Um,
anybody that's a fan of Edgar Wright's work, Scott Pilgrim versus the World, the Three Flavors Cornetto trilogy, any of the other stuff he's done, it's all so tightly. I mean,
yeah,
Edgar Wright, Simon Pegg, and Nick Frost are just a like dream team of creatives that create these movies. They're so funny and so tightly filmed. Like, yeah, Shaun of the Dead is a both a horror and a comedy, but it's. I mean, I fully agree with you. I would. It's so good, and you talk about it being more realistic. Like their plan of like, let's go to the pub, have a pint, wait for it to blow over. Uh, Joke or not, that was kind
that
of
was
the plan for the Darwin and I. Like, if there ever is a zombie apocalypse, you come over to my house. We barricade ourselves in the basement because it's back when I lived in the house where I was living in the basement, and like we could just hole up there for a while. And if that doesn't work, like duct tape me to your back. We have 360-degree coverage. Let's go. Like so.
or it also became, and I hate to bring it up, but um, that was kind of like how a lot of people viewed COVID lockdowns.
Fair.
So it's like,
Yeah.
oh, you guys were spot on. Like we all were like, oh, let's just hold up for a little bit.
Yeah. And to be
How wrong were
fair,
we?
right.
But
I
um,
I will say when it comes to those movies, I actually enjoy Hot Fuzz more than Shaun of the Dead, but Shaun of the Dead is like right there underneath it. Like um
yeah, I really liked I mean, I liked all three of them. With
Hot
Hot Fuzz
Fuzz is
being
just
number two.
so tight with the comedy, and everything calls back and pays off in Hot Fuzz too.
So what's number three for you?
Scream. Um, Again, not one that is particularly overly scary, but it's like Scream for A, what it is, and B, what it did to the horror genre in general. Like the slasher genre was essentially dying or dead at the time
Oh, it's definitely dead.
Scream came out, and it just turned it on its head. by almost being a parody of itself, but managing to be a legitimately scary horror movie at the same time. And
No, I 100% agree. That is one I have seen, thankfully.
yeah, and yeah, I mean, I've seen all of the Scream films except for 5 and 6. I need to. I That's just because I haven't had a chance to sit down and watch it, but I plan to. But yeah, I mean,
I forgot to get that far.
it was Wes Craven basically coming back and basically turning his own work on its head, and then using the very horror tropes that he was essentially making fun of at the same time.
Oh yeah, well he also kind of did that with one of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies where
Yeah,
it
one of
was him.
the I think it was one of the later ones.
Yeah, one of the much later ones
Hmm.
because it was Freddy came to life while they were filming the movie. So Wes Craven
Oh
actually
yeah,
did it. I can't remember the specific name for that one.
yeah, and that's something that happens, in the Scream franchise. Is within the Scream franchise, they have a film series of itself called Stab, that is covering the original murders that happened in the first movie, and then people started getting killed. First they get killed at the premiere of Stab, and then the third movie they're getting killed on the set of Stab 3. Like it's so meta and so cleverly done, and at the same time is legitimately a good slasher film. I can't gush about it enough. Um, yeah, that's why it's one of my favorites, and it's on this list because it's good. I mean, and I spoiler for Scream 2, I'm sad that Jamie Kennedy's character didn't survive more throughout the franchise because I always loved his character being like the horror movie guy, and he would be like, this is what you need to do in order to survive, and then ultimately he fails to follow his own rules and ends up dying.
Oh yeah, no, that was kind of a nice little
Hmm.
symbolism. Um, yeah, I guess without going too much of a jump, Nightmare on Elm Street was on my list.
I mean,
Um,
that's in the neighborhood. It's still Wes Craven. Yeah.
yeah, no, I can't. I was trying to decide if I want to do Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street, and I ended up going with Nightmare on Elm Street because of two reasons. One, I kind of like the premise a little bit more,
Hmm.
and while I think Jason looks so much cooler on average, Freddy Krueger was like the guy.
Oh yeah,
Like,
yeah. Robert
like
Englund is,
we can't. There was a period of time, and it's funny because a lot of people our age, and especially some, people a little bit older than us, those who that really grew up in the '80s. Um, there was a time, for some weird reason, where some of the most popular toys and franchises for kids were very much R-rated. Because
yeah.
yeah, like it was not uncommon for a kid to have a toy of Fred, like a bunch of stuff about Freddy Krueger, so, or Jason Voorhees, or RoboCop, and stuff like that. And it's like those are not movies for kids.
Absolutely not. I mean, yeah, it's funny because yeah, now you say that, like I wouldn't have thought twice if we knew somebody in elementary school that had RoboCop, Freddy Krueger, Jason, whatever. I wouldn't have batted an eye. That was just like, oh, that's awesome. And then it's only as an adult, after actually having watched those films, going, holy shit, these should not have been advertised to kids. And to be
Well, the
fair,
thing is,
maybe they weren't, but
the thing is I don't know about you, but I saw all three. I saw one or two of the Nightmare on Elm Streets, maybe three of them. I know that I saw Dream Warriors as a kid, like a young kid. Um, but it didn't freak me out because by then, it was like, oh, Freddy Krueger
yeah.
isn't really for kids, but he's so playful and so tongue in cheek that
Well,
it didn't scare. It was gory, yeah,
welcome to
but it didn't
prime
scare
time,
me as much
bitch.
as it probably would have.
Right.
And the same thing goes with Jason Voorhees with Friday the 13th, and because I think I first saw
Well,
that
I okay.
when I was 8 or 9.
I will have to be that guy. Jason isn't the villain in the original Friday the 13th. Not in
I
the
know,
not in the first one.
but like
Yeah, but in general, he is
Jason was
the face and
everywhere,
an
and
icon of the
it really
franchise.
wasn't It probably wasn't the first one that I saw, but I saw one of them
Hmm.
early on, and it must have been number 3 then, because it was Jason with the mask. That's all I remember. Not
Yeah, he
much.
doesn't. He actually doesn't get the mask
Oh,
until the third
sack.
movie. Yeah,
Yeah,
he has a burlap sack in the second film.
and then RoboCop. I definitely saw RoboCop 1 and 2 when I was a kid, and I
I
don't know how.
I actually still haven't seen RoboCop in its entirety, and I don't know why. Because I absolutely want. I love what I have seen in the movie. I just realized I don't think I've ever caught it like from front to back. You know, I'd always seen like bits and pieces on TV and that kind of thing. And yeah, I mean, and think about like one of my like I'm not a Sega person by any means. I was very much a Nintendo boy, but you know, I'd go to a friend's place and he had a Sega Genesis. Like one of my favorite games to play on that was RoboCop versus Terminator. And like,
And Terminator's another one. Can't stress how big
oh yeah,
and popular
Terminator, yeah.
Terminator was, and that's definitely not meant for kids. But my
No, God
God,
no.
was
Like it's not on my list, but because the first Terminator could absolutely be classified as a horror film versus you know T2, which is very much an action film. But but I mean, yeah, both those movies were huge when we were kids, especially
yeah. For some
T2.
reason, back in the 80s and early 90s, and I guess it could have started with the late 70s, but I don't think it was nearly as popular. But it's definitely in the 80s and up to about the mid 90s. Uh, a lot of R-rated films had merchandise that were marketed towards kids, like blatantly, obviously so. Um, because now that, as you mentioned, it's like, oh yeah, Terminator was on, and then Aliens was on that,
Hmm.
and
Oh yeah,
uh,
Alien was xenomorph
what else was
figures
on there?
everywhere.
I mean, Ghostbusters was hardcore on that. I know
I mean,
it
yeah, like
isn't a movie for kids, but that one's like the
well,
most kid, part of the most kid approachable movie.
right. I mean, part of well, I mean, okay, think about we had the real Ghostbusters, the cartoon. So I mean, like that was very much for kids. Like, but we fucking love that. And then, of course, they made Ghostbusters 2 more kid friendly and family oriented for it. If you actually go back and watch the original Ghostbusters, it's still it's not really a kid friendly or family friendly film. Like
It almost made it on my list, by the way.
they're
That was the other one
no,
I
and
saw. On
that's totally fair. Like, well, let's touch on Ghostbusters just briefly while we're here. It's like everybody in the film's smoking, everybody's swearing way more. It's a dark film, and to be fair,
Actually,
there.
the scene for that claymation of the damn gatekeeper dog,
Hmm.
that to this day is still like
There
I'm
there's
so unsettled by it.
there is a reason I prefer Ghostbusters 2 over Ghostbusters 1. And it's simply for the fact that the Terror Dogs scared the shit out of me as a kid.
Oh God, yeah, they are still scary
Yeah,
to me.
like I would absolutely enjoy the film up until the point where the Terror Dogs break free, and that and
It's only the scene when you see the full body movements,
hmm.
because later
Oh,
on
because it's
when they
unsettling.
like
Yeah.
that's
Hmm.
no like that's just cool looking.
Right. Yeah. I love, by the way, for those that haven't seen Ghostbusters Afterlife, they painstakingly recreated the original Terror Dog props, and they look so good. Like
Yeah, that's
you wouldn't know they weren't using like the originals, except obviously they've you know deteriorated in the interim because everything was made out of latex, which doesn't last. You know.
but yeah, so yeah, no, Nightmare on Elm Street definitely made it on my list. Not only because it was just always part of the pop culture growing up and everything like that.
Right.
That made it more approachable, but the just in general, the concept is pretty damn good. It was so kind of groundbreaking
I mean,
back then. Be,
yeah.
because there was also right around that time there was I knew about it later, but I didn't know that it was partially the news stories were being reported back then about the usually young men that were dying in their sleep,
Hmm.
um, that had immigrated from Southeast Asia over to the United States. Apparently, it was because I always heard it was like, oh yeah, it was people in Southeast Asia that were having this issue. And it's like, well, one reason it made it on the American news, because normally something like that wouldn't make it on American news, especially back in the 70s and 80s.
Hmm.
But it was because those people had fled war torn countries, moved to the United States, immigrated, became refugees, moved to the United States, And like years later, people that you know there was a rash, a number of people that young men that all had very similar backgrounds, or at least where they came from,
Hmm.
were dying in their sleep, and it was baffling doctors. I don't know if they ever figured out like why that was the case, but that was like part of the inspiration for
I
Nightmare on Elm Street was those new. I didn't like I said I didn't know that those news stories were circulating back then because I didn't hear about it until 15 years ago or something like that.
yeah,
And it's like, oh, did you know that that was part of the inspiration for Nightmare on Elm Street?
I now that you have brought that up, I remember hearing something about that, but I had no idea that was the inspiration. But it makes total sense because what I was going to mention earlier is like Freddy. The thing that makes Freddy Krueger, I think, a scarier villain than Jason is that he kills you in your sleep, so it's not safe to go to sleep, with him. Uh, but yeah,
Yeah,
that's
like
interesting.
that.
That
You're right. He is definitely a scarier villain because of that.
Yeah, so it's
Um,
like this. It's almost like the Matrix, where it's like your mind makes it real. So if you die in your sleep, you die for real. And yeah, that spat of unexplained deaths, like that's an interesting thing to look at. And then yeah, they take it for well, maybe something scared them to death in their sleep. So
yeah, like no, it was kind of terrifying to read about, and it's just like, wow, that's insane that was the inspiration. Um, and then yeah, of course, like yeah, Freddy Krueger himself, amazing villain, hilarious. I think that's one reason why, another reason why it's on the list is because there's a lot of comedy, like straight up, actually laugh out loud scenes that were meant to be funny. Oh,
hmm
another one that was popular was Child's Play. But
yeah,
not that
yeah.
many kids had Chucky toys, but I know a lot of kids that watch Child's Play. Um, but the yeah, no, like, and actually, real quick, I do want to touch on this because it's also the right time of year too. Is probably the maybe the most, if not the second or third most iconic Treehouse of Horror was their parody of Nightmare on Elm Street with Willie playing the role of Freddy Krueger.
Ah, yes, yes, yes. Okay, I was like, wait, did they? Of course they did, but I'm not remembering the episode. And then as soon as you said Willie, it's like, oh, of course, yeah, yeah, yeah. He curses them all for ignoring him while he's burning to death.
It's great because I just saw somebody post that clip of when he's actually on fire and he breaks into the parent teacher meeting. He's
Uh
like basically like somebody save me, and
huh.
Skinner just
Just like,
calmly goes,
What's your turn, Willie?"
"Oh, you gotta wait your turn. Really, it's Mister Van Housen, his time to speak.
hmm
Millhouse's dad,
Right.
and you just see the ambient like flames lighting from the flames of Willie because he's all on fire because he just quietly sits down in a wooden chair next to Skinner.
Yep.
Um, and freaking Millhouse's dad's like, I like to see the lunch menus in advance, so we can coordinate child's meals. I don't. I just don't like the idea of Millhouse having two spaghetti dinners, spaghetti meals in one day. And then that's when Willie starts screaming because he like actually gets burned down to his skeleton.
hmm
Um, and then yeah, he starts going after the kids in their sleep, and that was some of the the deaths in that were genuinely actually kind of scary. So it's like it was
Yeah.
so well done. If anybody ever, if you, I don't remember which treehouse it was.
It's an early one. It's like Treehouse 3 almost. I know I was looking at the list not too long ago. It might be a little later than 3, but it's definitely like within the first 10 or less.
Let me look real quick. Okay, it's
Yeah.
number six.
Okay, yeah, I knew it was pretty early on, but maybe not because 3 is pretty darn early. But yeah, I mean, I remember when we were discussing something about Treehouse, and I was looking at the list the other day. I remember reading like one of the writers said he always felt like the episodes should be both gruesome and funny. So it's like I wouldn't be surprised if he was involved with that, where like they're really taking it, pushing the envelope as far as they really can with The Simpsons by having some gruesome deaths, and then but it's all in good fun because it's non-canon and it's a parody of Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh yeah, but so yeah, no, would definitely recommend Treehouse of Horror. Yes, Nightmare on Elm Street. What's number four for you?
Well, this probably comes as no surprise to anybody that's watched, you know, the what's been put out of Shocktober so far. But Sinister came out in 2011. Um, yeah, this is one of two films that I would say made me genuinely uncomfortable in the theater while watching it, and not that I wasn't enjoying it, but the ambience and the sound design and everything just literally made me feel comfortable. Premise of the movie is Ethan Hawke is playing a true crime writer, and he moves his family into a house. Uh, Little does the rest of his family know that a murder of an entire family had taken place in the house. And while trying to research that and figure out what happened to this family, he comes across a box of 8 millimeter film up in the attic. And he starts watching these films, and at first they look like normal family films, but then like in the middle of the film, all of a sudden it will cut to actual video of the murder occurring and the family being killed in these horrible, gruesome ways. And then the more and more he looks into this, weirder and weirder things start happening to him. I won't spoil the whole plot because I highly recommend that you watch it. But yeah, well done with both the ambience, the film design, the actual snuff films are shot on 8 millimeters, so they just look genuinely creepy, and it's it, one of the more recent horror films that it was genuinely scary to me. And but it's one I just really enjoy rewatching, and obviously I've taken some inspiration into that with this year's Shocktober. But I'm not giving any away any details other than that. Oh yeah, I mean I absolutely do agree that it's at the forefront of more modern horror movies in tone and style. It just like I said, it's to me, I feel like that movie just came out a couple of years ago, and I kind of did a double take when I realized, oh wow, that was in 2011. Like because I remember going to see that in the theater with the Darwin and a couple others, and uh, I feel like we did that just a couple of years ago. But they did do a sequel. I enjoyed it just as much, but unfortunately, it didn't do as well, which very unfortunately canceled possibly a planned sequel as well as a crossover with the Insidious franchise, which I think would have been really good.
Oh shit, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, I found out about that a while back, and I'm actually still. It was apparently Jason Blum's call to cancel that, and I'm really kind of pissed because like that could have been so good.
That would have been good. Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Um.
when and going back to like I said, me feeling genuinely uncomfortable in the theater. Part of that definitely had to do with the soundtrack. The director chose to use a lot of avant-garde Swedish metal and a few other things that just it almost doesn't sound like music, but it is. But it just it's hard to explain without being there. It just genuinely felt uncomfortable.
Yeah. The use of music in a lot, especially more modern horror films, I think has gotten better because it
Hmm.
was always kind of. I don't think they really bothered, which is almost ironic with who was it? John Carpenter doing some horror movies. It's like he was one of the only ones I think that really kind of focused on the music instead of like he wanted it to help not just set the mood, which like I feel like they do, but he wanted it to influence the mood more. And I feel like that's the case with like a lot of more modern horror movies. Sinister is definitely one of them
Hmm.
because it feeds into that uncomfortable feeling. Uh, yeah, no, I can like that. That's something I think they've gotten better at, which is ironic again because I believe I remember just recently reading some stuff of people, sound designers, kind of bitching about movies not, including horror movies, not really utilizing, their soundtracks to help and make the movies scarier, help
Right.
influence them and everything like that.
I
And
mean,
it's like they're getting better because it feels like soundtracks back in the day were just slapped on.
Oh
And
sure, yeah. I mean sometimes they just fit something that worked or a thing they want to promote. I mean like think about just as an example that popped in my head a few minutes ago. It's like Slipknot's "My Plague" on the soundtrack for Freddy vs. Jason. Like there's nothing in that song that's appropriate to Freddy vs. Jason, or even really. It's I guess it's more appropriate to Resident Evil, which it was also on the soundtrack for that, because the video is actually has clips from the Resident Evil movie. But like, yeah, it really has nothing to do with either of those films. It's just more like, yeah, it fits. We're gonna slap it on the soundtrack, and then we're gonna promote it as such. Whereas like, I couldn't name any of the artists that are on the soundtrack for Sinister, but every single one of them just fit this eeriness and uncomfortableness that the film was setting out to go for. And as you said, horror films are improving. It's like Sinister is a great example of there aren't that many. It's not driven by jump scares. There aren't that many loud jump scares in the movie. But when they are used, because of all the tension that's been built up beforehand, they are extremely effective.
yeah, and that's one of the things that I really appreciate about that
Yeah.
movie is the fact that there's a lack of jump scares.
Yeah, I mean that's why I have no real interest in watching Paranormal Activity because it's essentially jump scare the movie. It
Yeah,
seems like
good concept, but yeah,
yeah,
just jump
like
scare the movie.
yeah, don't hate the concept of it. I just feel like the movie just runs on jump scares.
The movie runs on Duncan. Um, my number four would be Dracula, specifically the Bela Lugosi version.
Oh,
I wanted to do an
interesting.
old school horror
Going
one.
old school. Yeah, see, I debated on whether to include a couple of old schools because obviously like the thing could have made the list, but it's like we had to choose a cutoff some point, and I just decided to stick with movies that I've seen in my lifetime that came out in our lifetime that I've truly enjoyed. Yeah,
Well, for me, I wanted to make sure that included movies I saw,
fair.
and I've
Yeah.
seen the old school Frankenstein. Phantom of the Opera almost was on that list, and I remember seeing the Lon Chaney
Hmm.
one years and years and years ago. I loved it as a kid. Same thing with Dracula. I absolutely loved it. When I mentioned it's like I've always liked the horror aesthetic. You can't get much more horror aesthetic, Halloween, spooky time feeling than that movie. Um, I watched it. God, it was back in the '90s, and I want to say it was before middle school, so probably mid '90s, so probably about 8, 9 years old when I first saw it, and then I saw it again in high school or right after high school, mid aughts, and it definitely holds up. It definitely holds up because
Yeah.
it's got a decent amount of suspense, even though it's a black and white movie. You can kind of ignore that because that just really helps sell kind of like the spooky atmosphere. I think that's
Hmm.
one advantage that black and white movies really have is that they can
Yeah, but
give that
there
this is
isn't.
a dreamlike spooky feel.
Yeah, I mean there usually isn't a whole lot of music. Maybe some theremin or some other I mean, but yeah, it's very much you know uh, not a silent film, but yeah, it just they can focus more on that, just giving that creepy vibe to it. Would absolutely
Yeah,
agree that I mean I would say almost all the old Universal stuff all still stands out, but Dracula and the original Frankenstein especially. Um, yeah, Bela Lugosi.
those are the most um, consumable,
Yeah.
approachable for more modern audiences, other than maybe uh, Creature from the Black Lagoon,
Hmm.
just because that one is like 20 years newer, which blew my mind. I didn't realize that that was a '50s movie, but I think that one's also a little um, bit more approachable than like Wolfman, Invisible Man, and stuff like that. Not to say that they're not approachable movies. It's just for modern audiences. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah, Dracula. Dracula's definitely gonna be on that list for me. I wanted to make sure I got one old school horror, which I'm sure we're gonna hear some information about while we're down at PRGE this coming weekend
Yes.
because EVGN is gonna be there, and there's a lot of crossover horror fans that are gonna be at that event.
Yes, this episode will be releasing on a Sunday, as is the plan. So if you're listening to this now, depending on what time it is, we are down at Portland Retro Gaming Expo. Hashtag not a sponsor. Uh, Currently running Rock Band for the masses at large. So if you are in the
Yeah.
Portland area and it isn't after 5 p.m., come on down and join us.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Hashtag not a sponsor. Should be a sponsor. But yeah. No. There's definitely, like I said, there's just definitely something about. The problem is this one. I know that I remember really liking it, but it's been about 15, 20 years since I've seen it. So it's another one where it's like I can kind of remember the plot line and stuff like that, but
Yeah,
it's kind of
it's.
fun and without like looking it up. But it's also one where it's like I think almost everybody kind of knows, the
I think
general.
most people know the basic plot, even if you've only seen like the uh Francis Ford
Like,
Coppola, Gary
yeah,
Oldman, Winona Ryder, Anthony Hopkins. If you
that unfortunate one.
if you've only seen that version, you still know kind of the basic plot of
Yeah, they're very similar.
yeah,
Actually, EVGN did do a video where he compared
like
basically all the Dracula movies with the book,
yeah,
and
like
they're all relatively similar.
yeah, like Bram Stoker's Dracula, the '94 was it? I think movie like
Or yeah,
yeah,
early.
it adds in the whole love story and all that. Like that's not there, but as far as like the basic characters like Dracula and Harker and Van Helsing, like
Renfield.
Renfield, yeah, it's all there. Um, so yeah, you got a basic idea, but absolutely go back and watch the classic if you can find a way somewhere to watch it, and it's probably on the internet because oh boy, it's gonna
It's
be,
readily. It's pretty. I think Universal still has the copyright on it, but
but not for much
let's be
longer.
honest, that one's been around long enough that I think there's a million. Like there should be a million
Hmm.
places where you can watch it, and it's worth watching.
Yeah,
If
when
you want to get like a little bit of black and white movie in your diet, that one would definitely be one I would suggest.
mhm. I would recommend the original Frankenstein to go along with it. Still very much holds up. One more note to add on Dracula. Have you? And I'm going to guess the answer is probably no, just because you don't watch a lot of recent movies. But have you seen Renfield yet?
Nope.
Do you know what the premise of Renfield is?
Nope.
Basically, it is Renfield, Dracula's servant, but it's now modern day, and he's sort of helping Dracula heal from a attack some decades back, but he's starting to realize like he doesn't enjoy being Dracula's servant and he wants to break free, so he ends up starting to go to a self-help group to
Oh my god.
to teach him to stand up to Dracula so he can quit. And Dracula is played by Nicolas Cage, and it's very much it's probably more a comedy movie than a horror movie, but it's actually really enjoyable. But what I was going to mention is, since you are a fan of the original Dracula, there's sort of a montage in the beginning of the film where they cover Dracula meeting Renfield and then like them throughout the years until you get up to modern day. And they actually went to the trouble of essentially recreating several scenes from the original Dracula with Nicholas Hoult as Renfield and Nicolas Cage as Dracula
Oh,
in
that's
their
actually pretty
in their
cool.
places, and it's really well done. Like I'll have to see if I can find a clip of it and show you after we're done recording, because it's like I've seen like a side by side comparison of the original scene versus how they recreated it. Very well done. And it's like it's only maybe 30 seconds in the beginning of the film, but like it was just that nice touch of like, yeah, we're not discounting the original film that happened, but here we are now, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a pretty good concept. I'll give it that.
Yeah, I actually genuinely enjoyed it. It definitely it has its comedy moments in it though, of course. Some over the top action, that kind of thing.
Right. What is the final one for you? Number five.
So this one will come as no surprise to most people, but I debated whether to put it on the list because we're talking about horror movies, and I would almost say, strictly speaking, it's not a horror movie. But I'm putting it on the list anyway because the rest of the franchise falls in the genre, and it's close enough. Saw. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah, I
I would argue it's a, especially the first one. I would say is more horror, just because it's psychological horror.
yeah, I mean that's the thing. Is the first movie is very much a psychological thriller compared to a horror movie or a gore movie, as some people want to call them, because it's not really in the torture porn realm that the rest of the franchise eventually falls into. It's like yes, the traps are there, but they're not nearly as gory, and it's really more about solving the mystery of who is the serial killer and how what does he want and why has he trapped these two guys in a bathroom, plus the cops are actually trying to track him down, and how all the characters are connected, and uh, I don't even want to mention that it's there, but I have to. I'm not going to say what it is in case you haven't seen it, but if you haven't seen Saw, there is a twist at the end, and it's still one of the best twist endings I've ever seen. But
Okay.
yeah, big fan of
Sounds
it.
good.
Have the whole franchise on Blu-ray, and I am waiting for the Darwin, anxiously waiting for the Darwin to get back into the country so that we can go see Saw 10. Because I am intrigued by this one because it's going to fall between Saw 1 and 2, and that should be interesting.
AKA Saw X or Socks.
Yes, socks.
Yeah, I can't really add anything to Saw. Um, I have seen that one, and yeah, no, it. I definitely. I think that one's probably my. Well, I really haven't seen many of the others, but I
Mhm.
don't have as much of an inclination to. Um, there wasn't Spiral.
So Spiral is essentially a spin-off, but due to Saw X being called Saw X, they have essentially made Spiral Saw 9 at this point. But in its original concept, Spiral is actually a spin-off that, believe it or not, was conceived of and written by Chris Rock. He
I've heard nothing but good things about it.
Yeah, no, it was actually it was very good. It still fits in the like I actually even though Spiral is in my mind not an official sequel, it's a spin-off. I think it fits in almost better than what they tried to do with Jigsaw, which is Saw 8.
That yeah, you're not the only person I've seen that mentioned that.
Yeah. Like I did not hate Saw 8. I just was like I see what you did here and I just don't feel like it quite landed, but thankfully what they did doesn't really impact any of the other films. So we can sort of just take it or we can leave it. Whereas like Spiral is again its own thing, but they could definitely make reference to it in Saw X, depending on when it takes place, because that part isn't entirely clear. And that's one of those things about the Saw franchises. They're playing with the timelines in certain movies, so some stuff takes place earlier or later than you think it does. But yeah, I definitely enjoyed Spiral. Would watch it again. Honestly, it was if I had seen it in the theater, the price of admission alone would have been worth just getting to see Samuel L. Jackson go. You want to play games, motherfucker? But um, but yeah, no, I actually did enjoy it. It just what honestly blew me away about it was that Chris Rock came up with the idea, wrote the script, and they actually made it happen. It was just a chance meeting that he ran into I think Darren Lynn Bousman, who directed Saw 2, 3, and 4, and was like, "Oh, you worked on Saw, right? I love your films. I got an idea for one," and it just sort of ballooned from there. So because he hadn't been involved with the franchise since since Saw 4. He'd left to do Repo the Genetic Opera at that point. So
Um, So my final movie
Hmm.
is another one that I saw as a kid, and it terrified. Mostly one scene terrified me, and it was so bad that I didn't see the full movie until probably about 10, 15 years later. And that is the original Pet Cemetery.
Oh, that is one I still need to see.
Um, yeah, obviously its general premise is uh, the family moves out to kind of like a farmhouse. They have a cat that gets killed. When they bury it, it comes back to life, but it's evil. Um, and if I recall, because the problem is I saw the second one as well, and that one stuck in my mind even more
Hmm.
because the first movie had the one scene that terrified me. But I've seen the second one like 3 or 4 times just because it was always on. It was cheap for cable stations to air the second one.
Sure,
Because
yeah.
it wasn't. But if I recall, they ended up the father is the main character in the first movie, whereas there's this kid that's the main character in the second one, and I was like close to the same age as the kids were in that movie when I first saw that, so it connected with me a little bit more. Um, if I recall, the father ends up having to bury like one or two of his family members as well because they get killed. I think it's like their child gets hit by a semi truck. It's like a 4-year-old girl, and the family's so distraught. By then, the cat was came back to life, so the dad buries the daughter in the same area, and she comes back evil.
Oh, nice.
Um, but there was one scene again, like I saw it in high school, or like right around because I used to watch a shitload of television, and for a while there, like we would have TBS, and they would air stuff. That's where I first saw it was like when I was 10, and then I think when I finally saw the rest of the movie, because it's one where I didn't know it was on. I was just passing through it,
Hmm.
passing through and it was like, oh, it's Pet Cemetery, because and I'll mention because I recognized one of the characters. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Then I realized, oh wait, this is the part that I hadn't seen. I was about 10. I think I was 10. I think it was 1997. Um, and the mother had a sister who the family she was kind of crazy, and the family locked her away in her room, and she started to like the mother hated going around the sister's room, and I think she was told not to go inside of it. And one of the days I forgot what the circumstances were, like why the door was open, but the door was open. And so she looks in there, and she sees her sister, who is just like decaying, essentially, but still
Oh,
alive. And the
uh-huh.
sister tries to get the mother to go in there when she was a kid to kill her, essentially. And there was something about that scene that scared the living shit out of me. And I had to step away from, I changed the channel, and it was just
Hmm.
like, I was like in tears because it freaked me out so bad.
Oh, wow.
Um, that yeah, like I said, I didn't get back to it until I was pretty much at least in a middle to late teens. Um, that for whatever reason that always stuck with me. So it was just like that scared the hell out of me. The concept was really cool. It's Stephen King. It was one of the better adaptations of his books, in my opinion. Not the
Hmm.
best, but one of the better ones. And one of the neighbor, they had a friendly old neighbor who was a really big farmer dude,
The Fred Gwynn.
and Fred Gwynn, yeah,
Yeah.
was Herman Munster, and even as a 10-year-old, because the Munsters were pretty damn popular still. I mean, they were on Nick at Night, so I'd watch them, either watch the show with my parents, whatnot. Which special mention to the Munsters because it
Oh
is
yeah.
season. Uh, I still need to see Rob Zombie's version. I heard it's pretty good, but I also heard a lot of people hated it. But I think they also hated it just because it wasn't the original
It's
situation.
the
But
I did see it and I enjoyed it, but there are things I didn't enjoy about it. To and I think that's all I can really say on it. To not go down a rabbit hole on it.
but
Uh,
yeah. So the original monsters were really popular, and yeah, it was Herman Munster who was the old farmer. and I that helped me out so much because when it was getting a little uneasy during the movie,
Hmm.
and I don't think he makes it to the end. Um, Again, it's been long enough that
Haven't
once
seen
again,
it,
it's another
so
one where it's been so long since I've seen it that I still have blanks, even though I know that I saw the whole thing. Um, yeah, no, that always helped ease the tension because he was just such a lovable,
mhm.
likable character and guy. That because yeah, he immediately became friends with the family, and he ended up saving the daughter at least once or twice in the movie because yeah, she would just try to cross the street because very responsible parents, and they lived on there was a highway, but a rural highway, so yeah, there were always cars going 50, 60, 70 miles per hour down it, and the little girl just would I think the neighbor was across the street. I think uh, Herman Munster's character.
Mhm.
I'm going to refer to him as Herman Munster.
That's fine.
Fred's character was across the street.
Yeah.
Um,
You don't want to go down
but
that
yeah, no,
route.
that movie scared. That one scene scared the hell out of me. And there's a little bit of gore, and it's Stephen King, so there's a little bit of psychological horror and
Mhm.
supernatural horror. He's really good at both of those. Shout outs to Stephen King.
Oh yeah, I
If we
mean,
had more time, I would
good
have reached
lord,
out to him.
we could do
But
an entire yeah. If we could get a guest on a Halloween podcast, 100% would Stephen King. Holy shit! Like, I mean, we could talk about
Halloween,
his work for. I think we do an entire episode on Stephen King. Maybe.
almost. The problem is I well I haven't seen all the full thing of almost any of his works, and of course I don't really read books because I'm stupid. I can't read. Um,
You said it.
but I actually kind of agree with you because it's like yeah no like I've seen like one of the ones I've seen all the way through is the Langoliers, um, and Pet Cemetery 1 and 2, which I don't know, and then of course The Shining. But I think those are the
Right.
only four that I've seen all the way through. But
Misery.
I've seen Maximum Overdrive. I've seen a lot from that, and Dreamcatcher. I've seen stuff from that, and
Is Mr. King?
Stand By Me. I've seen most of that movie. But and here's the thing about me when it came to movies is I would catch a lot of them on TV.
Yeah.
So I didn't like if I didn't catch it from beginning to end, I would catch pieces here and there because they would replay these movies, throughout the year and everything like that. So that's one reason why with a lot of these movies I have this weird blank where I'm like, I know that I've seen it all the way through, but it probably was like two or three different sessions over the course of many years. But it's like, like, oh, I pieced it all together. So that's one reason why I kind of have a little bit of a blank on that. But yeah, no, Pet Cemetery. I actually really like number two. Like I said, for some weird reason, that one
Mhm.
stuck with me more, even though it's not as good of a movie as the first one. I liked it a little bit more, and that one was just kind of similar concept. Kid moves to new town, dog dies, they bury the
Dog comes
dog in
back, but dog comes back
a Native
wrong.
American cemetery,
Of
and the dog
course.
comes back, and there's two families involved in this one, so it's like the kid and his best friend, and his best friend I think he has a abusive dad who ends up getting like they end up killing him, and he gets buried there, and then he comes back. So
Sounds
it's an
about right.
undead abusive dad.
Yeah. Uh,
uh,
just going back to the idea of like actually getting Stephen King to interview on the podcast, you just be like, "Yes, Mr. King. Exactly how much cocaine were you on when you directed Maximum Overdrive?"
I
But
mean, I on the one hand I would be curious. On the other hand, it's like I would not have the balls to ask.
no, I don't feel like no. We got to get Jeff to ask that question. But no, I don't have much to add for Pet Cemetery.
Yeah, you
Because
mentioned that you hadn't seen it, which
right,
yeah, no, I mean, I would always recommend.
I,
If
I,
I mention a movie, it's like I recommend watching it, but if you don't, no skin off my teeth.
I
But
will.
that one is definitely one that I think you probably appreciate.
Oh yeah, I think so. I mean, and I will say one thing I have noticed is if anybody is going to parody Pet Cemetery, almost always will there be a character that is essentially a parody of Fred Gwynn's character in that movie. Like
Oh yeah.
that is kind of how iconic it is to the movie. I mean, I can think specifically of South Park having done it twice. It's just like, yep, you don't want to go down that road.
Right.
A lot of history down that road.
Yep. Um. But yeah, so that's it looks like that's kind
Yeah,
of our list.
that is kind of our list. I do have one honorable mention. I limited myself to just one because, and I'm not even going to talk about it that long. I just wanted to put one thing out there about it because it's not well, just it's the Blair Witch Project, all right?
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
and again, this has to do with when the movie came out. It came out in 1999. This is when the internet is still in its infancy. So, nowadays something happens, people know about it right away because somebody posted it to Twitter or and then it gets reposted to Facebook or Reddit or whatever, and it just spreads. That didn't happen. So things went viral a lot more slowly. More things had their own websites for things, and they actually presented this film as though it was actual found footage in the forest that the police had found essentially, and they'd compiled this film about these three kids that went missing from this film. Little did we know, yes, it was all planned, it was all scripted, it was all filmed. But in 1999, nobody knew that. This was some people have figured it out, of course, but like by and large, people thought this was real. So it was
It was national news as a real thing,
right. Yeah, I
and
mean,
that was not like, oh, they were in on it. It's like, no, this was a small.
yeah, it helped. They used the actual actors' real names, so it really seemed like these three people went missing. And I don't know if it's still out there, but if you went on the Wayback Machine and looked up the original website, it almost, essentially is like the missing persons reports for them and what happened. And I remember, seeing it in the video store when I was younger, and my grandmother wouldn't rent it because she'd seen the commercials and she goes, I didn't want to watch a movie that's all shaky cam for, 90 minutes. That's gonna make me sick. Fair enough. So I didn't see it till years later. But the main thing I want to point about this movie is that anybody that wants to complain about this movie and say it's not scary or like the ending sucked or whatever, if you think the ending of that movie sucked, you weren't paying attention. And that's all I'm
Yeah,
going to say. If
no,
you
I'm
if you
right there with you on
if
that
you
one.
if you if you watch that movie from the beginning and pay attention right from the beginning right to the end, that ending pays off and will make all kinds of sense and will feel like you just watched a legitimately good movie. All right. I think that's going to have to do us. We are running up on 90 minutes. Kept this one a little bit shorter, but we are also recording us on a Wednesday, and it's time to do our co-op stream. So we better wrap this one up. So I do hope you've all enjoyed this one. Stay tuned for another episode next week, and we'll have a different topic for you. And yeah, do you have anything else you want to add, Tesla?
Uh, Not really. Yeah, we'll have another episode out. This one comes out on the 15th, and then we'll have another episode for the 22nd. So,
All right. Well, that'll do it for this one. Thank you all so much for listening. Until next time, you stay classy, Internet.